We're still watching various locations from the One Piece world reacting in absolute real time, like a live stream to the transmission from Old Bag Vegapunk. This time the chapter begins with the reaction to Flower Capital in the Kingdom of Wano Kuni. "Bro, I can't believe this gets signals from abroad," said a familiar voice. Meanwhile, Vegapunk's monologue of the recording was still going on, and the voices in his head were making themselves heard. "So Joy Boy was just a little pirate. He sounds just like Luffy, if you're going to ask me, bruv," said Konohamaru, the 8th Hokage of Wano Kuni. "You've heard of him, my lord, but how come? You were just a little brat the whole time," said Kinemon, who had obviously forgotten that Momo is the prince of the village hidden in the leaf. We also see G4, where I'm now sure we're going to see every single island or relevant character from every single arc that has ever been seen in the story of One Piece. On G4, we see all the fake Straw Hats and the fake Luffy, the CEO of the fakes, Demolo Black. "Joy Boy? I don't believe he's stronger than our captain." "Right, Captain Kid. Leave the guy alone. He's already dead. And there's no way that I'm weaker than Joy Bull," said the CEO while he was now dressed like Captain Kid. Why the hell is he pretending to be one of the worst generations all the time? What good does that do him? It's not like they have social media and he can become famous like he's show speed. Anyway, Vegapunk fooled the Navy and told them some lies like he had read some poneglyphs, which of course is complete gibberish. Because we all know that in the whole One Piece world, only Robin has read them. And Zoro, of course. So he told them that he had read it and found something too. Something that was absolutely breathtaking. Because he had found something about a past war that was anything but fun. He was supposedly talking about the Void era, where there was a very long war. He also said Joy Boy's enemy was the world government of the present day. Do you know what that means? That means that Luffy is the region of Joy Boy. At least he said the first part. The Navy was a bit surprised at first, because they had Men in Black vibes for a moment, and just forgot that they were part of the government. It was also the beginning of the world government that was created, because this event was practically the beginning of 20 kingdoms deciding together to found it. Of course, this really annoyed the Gorosei because the time had come for Vegapunk to utter some really dangerous words. You could literally see how hard Mars had to go to the toilet, and he wasn't really able to run, so he had to run straight ahead in slow motion, while the whole building was about to fall to pieces. Of course, it could also be that he had simply used his conqueror's haki. Oh well. You might say they had no other choice. So robust was Joy Boy's faction. Without knowing the spark that caused the war, I won't say who was right or wrong. I'll simply state that two competing ideologies came head to head. As I mentioned earlier, for its time 900 years ago, the country of Joy Boy's birth was a startlingly advanced civilization, said the old bag. Meanwhile, we see the elephant Zunesha carrying the island of Zu on his back. So we can assume that Joy Boy was born on the island of Zu, and therefore carries Zu blood in him. A strong nationality to be very proud of. The old bag of Vegapunk went on to explain, and the weapons that were used over the course of this 100-year conflict appear to be impossible to recreate with the latest of modern science. Of course, the people from Zu thought this was absolutely fantastic, and Carrot in particular was very enthusiastic. "What? The CEO of the Void Century is just from the same country as me? Hala Madrid," she thought to herself. We also saw the Heart guy, who I've actually forgotten the name of, and am now too lazy to research. Definitely the guy who fought Afro Luffy. Like I said, we just see every existing character that's ever been in this show. Vegapunk continued. Even I, a humble genius, CEO of Egghead Island, billionaire, playboy, philanthropist, cannot replicate them. And therein lies the problem. Before we moved on, we saw Labofaz, where Stussy and Kaku were staying, also for several episodes, mind you. Kaku, in particular, just let his balls dangle and was simply down for 18 chapters and just wouldn't get up. While Stussy was on the phone, Kaku listened intently, because she wasn't just talking to a random lover, but to Edison. He told her to deactivate the barrier and run to safety. Stussy, like a diva, wanted to argue instead of just trusting the man. but he explained to her objectively with logical facts that it just wouldn't make sense to keep the barrier up if people like J motherfucking G could walk through the barrier like they were Cristiano Ronaldo in the opponent's penalty area. "I've done all I can to help the Straw Hats make their escape. They can take it from here," said poor little Edison as he lies devastated on the ground. Why isn't anyone helping him? And who wants to say that the Straw Hats help people? I'd also be interested to know how many people the Straw Hats have killed indirectly or even directly. Because someone like Zorro has certainly slashed 1 or 2 Marine soldiers completely open. And speaking of Zorro, we now saw him with Jinbei on his way to the Flying Sunny. "Are you on your way, Jinbei? We need you guys here," Usopp, who had once again shat his pants, probably said. "Sorry, bruv, we're almost there." Meanwhile, Zorro and, obviously, Nami, who as always was looking for direct stress, were fighting. She also said, "Hurry! More ships are gathering around the northeast coast, and we don't want to land on the water only to get bombarded to bits," said Nami with her big melons. Meanwhile, Stussy was really shaken, and actually knew that her end had come and wondered who was worth living for now that Stella was gone. Kaku just looked depressed at the floor and had no answer. Why should he? 2 years ago he was almost on a par with Zorro, and now he was being pushed around by everyone. We came back to the Straw Hats at the Flying Sunny, where Nosjuro had to prove himself against 2 giants, Bonnie and Sanji. The giants were very focused on his sword as they knew how dangerous he could be with it. With a mighty blow, he missed Bonnie by a hair's breadth and destroyed the bow of the ship. And as they continued to fight, Vegapunk, of course, continued to explain the story. "Oh damn, the Void Century, the one with Joy Boy, came to a close with the defeat of Joy Boy." And I find that scary, to be honest, since the powers were pretty much the same as Luffy's in Gear 5. And if he lost, then I don't want to know what defeated him. Perhaps the big difference is simply that Luffy, unlike Joy Boy, now had capable allies. But back to the chapter. These words absolutely infuriated Nosjuro, and he started to jump up like a Superman. "How long must you jabber on, Vegapunkaroo?" he said as he leapt into the sky. And here we get quite a few Piker flashbacks, as he not only jumped into the air but took out his sword with a very powerful swing and destroyed the cloud of Egghead Island, that is, Punk Records, with one gigantic blow. Vegapunk continued his conversation and said, "But not before, leaving vast, permanent scars of war across the face of the world. The world is made up of a series of islands. Sailing between them is difficult, and many people never experience anything but their own culture at home. But this shared understanding of the world does not necessarily apply to the world of 1,000 years ago, because a cataclysm occurred during the Void Century, causing the world to sink once before. We are currently living on the pieces of a continent that existed long ago. The world of a millennium ago now slumbers unseen at the bottom of the sea. In fact, one can assume that in the past, there were a number of continents we know nothing about. If the world was still the same as it was in the past, then the act of erasing 100 years of history would be simply unthinkable and impossible. However, it makes much more sense when you understand that the rise in sea level over that century was 200 meters. And of course, that was something you had to digest first. That's why the pirate era started back then, because the world of One Piece was similar to the real world, but was divided into various small parts by the destruction caused by the war or by another weapon. And the reactions of people across the world of One Piece were naturally mixed. While some actually wondered what the old man was saying, others were skeptical, and others believed him outright. Vegapunk continued, "As for why the sea level rose so much during that century, it would be natural to assume the work of a sudden natural disaster. But I can state for a fact that this was a man-made disaster. If such cataclysm were caused by natural forces, then the initial disaster would have spanned several centuries and inflicted slow but continual damage upon the world. But by any measurement, climatology, geology, environmental and atmosphere science, this dramatic shift could not have happened within a single century. So the cause is something else. And when I detected the rise in worldwide sea levels the other day, I had my answer. I knew the cause and confirmed his existence. The ancient weapons that sank the world into the sea 800 years ago still exist today and await the moment that they stir once again. In other words, the vast war that arose during the Void Century never came to an end. Those were Vegapunk's last words when you saw Imu at the end. The chapter was really fucking exciting, and the shit is really hitting the fan now. Because now the whole world knows that Imu and Co are absolutely fraud, and they need to upload a big YT apology video and come up with good arguments to keep their subscribers and sponsorships. What do you think? Write something in the comments, and otherwise we'll see you in the next video. See you then.